Welcome to the Elite Power Moves podcast, where we unlock the secrets to level up in all areas of life. I'll be interviewing some of the world's top performers in their fields so that you can uncover and learn the strategies that have led to their overall success and apply it to your own life. Paul, welcome to the Elite Power Moves podcast. I'm really humbled to have you here today and looking forward to asking you some of the questions that all our leaders want to hear.
Thanks, Michael.
Dr. Zach, your research has significantly advanced the understanding of oxytocin's role in trust and social bonding. How did your interest in this neurochemical begin, and what led to you exploring this in a broader implications for human behavior?
Yeah, thanks. In the late 90s, early 2000s, I had done research showing that trust was among the strongest predictors social scientists have ever found to understand why countries are rich or poor. So trust facilitates transactions. And the next step on that is, well, why do two people in a given country trust each other? Why do two strangers ever interact? And it turns out that we developed protocols to measure the human brain's release of oxytocin. That's a key signaling molecule that tells us that I should trust you and avoid Bob Smith, who seems like a sketchy dude. This is all happening unconsciously, so we need technology to measure this. So if I want to be an effective leader, I've actually got to get people to follow me, and they only follow me if they trust me.
Could you share an example of how oxytocin's influenced decision making for a leader in context?
Sure. So from a leadership perspective, I need to convince you to do some things. Right? We're all lazy. Our brains are lazy because we want to do the regular thing. I want you to do something new. So I've actually got to use language. I've got to use my physicality. I've got to use all those factors that signal that this is important to you. So the brain makes decisions based on expected value of outcomes. And oxytocin is part of the brain's evaluation system for social and emotional experiences. So once we could measure oxytocin and related neurochemicals, we created technology so that people could test their communications before they let them out on free roaming humans and ensure that they would be effective at motivating people to take actions.
It's really insightful, really, because when it comes down to it, like having a large team myself, like we can sort of share our vision and have our feelings, but we need to get our staff emotionally attached to the outcome. And obviously, it's a game changer what you're doing right now.
And it's emotions that value experiences or anything. Emotions are how the brain values experiences. So I've got to get you to actually care about what I'm talking about, and that's an emotional response. This is why things like if you're a competent leader, being vulnerable, asking, but people generally want to help each other. We're social creatures. And so instead of being the top-down, high testosterone son of a bitch, I can say, look, here, I've talked to all you guys. We have this new program. Here's what we need to do together. Well, that's a much better leadership approach than screaming at people because people just acclimate to fear pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's right. And we obviously don't have a sustainable team if they're working under that fight and flight response. And I guess like you did mention being emotionally vulnerable and having emotional intelligence. And I think that's a really key trait for a leader.
It is. Yeah, it really is. And also for individual employees, right? So if I am emotionally healthy, if I call this emotional fitness, if I'm building up my emotional fitness, then I'm able to gain the satisfaction from work, gain ownership over what I'm doing. So from a leadership perspective, when I look at the highest performing teams that we have examined, they're very flat management structures, right? The leader is involved in everybody, what they're doing. He or she is leading from the front lines. They empower employees to be successful. And by doing that, the employee then gets the sense that, oh, yeah, I actually own this thing. I'm invested in it. Again, emotionally invested in it. I want to stick with it. I want to make sure this performs at the highest level.
Yeah, it's a really key trait to having a peak performing team. Paul, at Six, you've developed a platform that measures neurochemical signals to promote emotional health. How does this technology work, and what inspired you to integrate neuroscience in the digital health solutions?
Yeah, great question. Once we identified how the brain values social emotional experiences, this is a network in the brain I've called immersion because these peak immersion moments, you kind of get sucked into them. They're super enjoyable and valuable. Then we flip the script and go, well, how many high value moments do you need to be emotionally healthy, to be passionate? As you know, Michael, we've been obsessed for the wrong reasons of avoiding stress. Stress is fabulous for you, right? I'm stressed. I'm physiologically aroused now because I'm putting energy into this conversation. It's great to talk to you, right? I need that arousal response. I need to be passionate. I need to have energy. So if I don't have that arousal response, which we call stress, but it's not really stress. Stress is a long-term thing. So if I don't have passion, I don't have energy, I'm not thriving. And so we showed that you need six well-defined, high-value peak immersion moments per day to really thrive in life. It means I'm engaged, I'm doing things, I'm jumping out of bed, I have energy, I have positive mood, I'm kicking butt and taking names. Four high value moments a day, you're kind of maintaining. Three or less, you start getting depressive symptoms. You have low energy and low mood. So the Six app runs in the background continuously. It applies algorithms we developed to signals we pull from smartwatches to fitness wearables and lets us infer from activity of the cranial nerves the value second by second you're getting from experiences. And a simple goal. I want six or more high value experiences per day. So just like we build up our physical fitness, which is essential to being a great leader, we also need to have strong emotional fitness. I've got to do those things, which I may not even know, which is why we have technology that add value to my life. Those things are almost always at work and they almost always involve other people. Right? I might go for a hike on myself and watch the sunrise from the top of a big mountain. It could be a high value experience for me, but if I do it with my two best friends, much more value. So part of this is reminding us that we need to be connected to those people around us. And from a leadership perspective, you're not by yourself. You're not alone, right? You actually have a team of people. You need to include them in what you're doing so that you get this value. The other thing that's real interesting, Michael, is that immersion is contagious. If I'm having a fabulous time with you, you're having a fabulous time with me, right? So we get to share that energy. And so leaders should not be loners sitting alone, not engaging with people. All of us need human beings to really thrive.
It's 100% true, and I think it links back to our first question where we've got the leaders with the high testosterone, the boss leaders who are delegating, checking tasks, and using all their energy to make sure their team's doing the right job. Apart from the transformational leadership who are getting involved, who are emotionally involved, who show emotional intelligence that are sort of coaching their players and developing their skills and celebrating wins and lots more. So um, how do you envision this technology being adapted into the organizational settings to enhance employee well-being and performance?
All right, so let's level set. All the countries that we both live in and we talk to every day are below replacement fertility. And in my country, the US, is at record low unemployment rates. So we are running out of humans rapidly. So you have people working for you and particularly high performers working for you. You actually need to keep them physically fit and emotionally fit so they don't quit their jobs or go work somewhere else. So I think it's essential to provide tools to employees to allow them privately to measure their own emotional fitness and then using anonymized data, ensure you're creating an emotionally healthy workplace. So for many of the jobs for people I work with and you work with, it's not like people are losing a finger on the job. It's that they're getting burnt out. They're not getting the satisfaction from work. They're not able to have a good work-life integration where they can work out, they can see their families, they can do some recreation, and they can perform their best at work. So by having this technology and giving this as a employee benefit, we're investing in that longer term relationship with employees, particularly those who are the really high performers.
And it's really true that employees link to how they feel and how your energy sort of amplifies into their energy as well. So I think it's super important, and I think it's the importance of a lot of there's a big buzzword in Australia, psychosocial safety, which is pretty much well-being for a workplace. And obviously, a lot of employees are really pushing into the emotional wellness of their staff, especially after
Can I
the
push
last
back
couple
on
of years.
that? I don't think psychological, social psych is well-being. That's
Yeah.
table stakes. It just means you're not getting beat the crap out of you at work. That's
Yeah.
just the baseline. So we developed a physiologic measure of psychological safety,
Yeah.
very weakly associated with measures of well-being. By the way, measures of health, measures of mood. That's just table stakes. Sure, I don't want to have a toxic workplace. But by and large, most workplaces are not toxic because we know right away that's not adaptive. But
Yeah.
thriving, well-being is a much bigger notion. Am I excited when I get out of bed? Do I have energy? When I walk into an organization that work with me like you do, and I see people with the shoulders dropped and they're shuffling their feet, I'm like, oh, these people are not turned on. And I walk into place, I see you, we were talking earlier, and like you got energy, you're on, man. This is great. This is so much fun. Like that's the place I want to be. And that's where I can create this organizational structure where every employee at every level can perform at their best. And this is the work you do so well. Really important. What we're adding in is measurement. Don't just survive. Let's thrive. Let's dominate.
I love that. I love it. I'm also a big fan of the buzzword that I mentioned before because it pretty much is what we're talking about. It's just the new sort of phrase that people are using, but I think you hit the nail right on the head. And we measure our KPIs, we measure our staff performance. Like we should be like addressing and measuring staff well-being as well.
Absolutely. And really thriving. So even well-being to me is too low a bar. I want you to be well. Actually, I want you to be turned on, passionate, excited, right? So when I go into a workplace, and maybe you do this too, I ask people, why does your company exist? More than half employees cannot even tell me that. Well, we earn a profit, that's why we exist. Bullshit. That's not, I don't care about that. What I care about is, are you changing the world? The only reason that some customers are paying for your good or service is because it makes their lives better. How do you do that? That should be in the tip of your tongue. Hey, I'm turned on every day when I get to work because I get to improve people's lives by fill in the blank, right? So I really want to create that level of energy. And as you said, the leadership doesn't have that. No one else is going to have it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek and what is your why? And that does lead from emotion. And like, for example, a couple of my companies, the gym business is to support the well-being of our community and sort of help ripple affect generational health within their families. And obviously, with EPM, it's helping men create a legacy of health, not just the short-term wins like weight on the scales. It's about the bigger picture. And I think every strong leader should have that why and the culture as part of their organization.
And you took a little dig at testosterone, which I've done a fair amount of research on. You want that testosterone. So when you're a leader, your testosterone is going to be higher. You're going to have more energy. So in experiments we've done, and I've done on myself, synthetic testosterone, which is only prescription drug. I'm not saying you should abuse testosterone. High energy, high motivation, great workouts. Um, the downside is you become less other focused, become more self-focused. You can take more risk. So we want to modulate that. The good thing is once you're over 30, your testosterone starts to fall, but it is adaptive to the social environment you're in. So let's kind of have this modulation between being a good connector, being a great leader, being vulnerable, and having that dominance to say, hey, let's win at this game, right? Every business has competitors, right? Every individual has competitors. I want to be the best me. I want my organization to last forever. And I want it to wow our customers every day and make our employees happy. So that's going to take some testosterone, right? It's going to take some energy, some value. And so, yeah, I think, we want to, as men, have both of those factors, that kind of high drive, desire to dominate, which I think is a good thing, right? If my business is just doing half-ass work, why is anyone using me? I want to be the best. It's like sports. I want to play, even a sport I'm not good at. I don't want to play people who are worse than me. That's no fun. I want to play people who are better than me. I want to get better at what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's 100%. And I think leading back to the questions we talked about before, I think
Yeah.
um, great leaders can sort of adapt from high stress situations and then come back to, being present and sort of come out of, those high energy testosterone um, sections of their life where they're still calm and showing emotional intelligence and having that balance between both.
Right.
Paul, your work emphasizes the importance of trust in building high performance teams. What are some practical strategies leaders can implement to cultivate trust within their organization?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch. I wrote a whole book on this called Trust Factor in 2017, but I'll give you just a couple. One is recognize high performers publicly. Like, hey, these are the people we want to hold up as superstars, and do that personally. Do it in public. Do it with peer recognition, right? Identify those high performers and really support them. And the second, which I sort of alluded to earlier, which is once people are trained, give them the freedom to actually execute as they see fit. So that high locus of control is very important so that people have this ownership stake in what they're doing. Again, you're holding them accountable. So the kind of optimal running a team model that seems to have come out of all the work I've done and many others is much more of a coaching model, as you've said. I want to coach you to success. So almost an inverted pyramid. As a leader, my job is to make sure you're successful. Now you got to hit milestones. If you're not hitting those milestones, we got to have a conversation. Either I got to give you more resources or I didn't have the right training, right? I'm ultimately responsible, but I want you, the employee, to have both that professional development, but also the personal satisfaction that I did something hard but achievable. And that's those challenge goals I need to set up, which are specific to each individual or each team.
I guess a follow-up question for this, Paul, would be how does fostering trust impact an organization's resilience through times of crisis?
Right. So in times of crisis, we may have to dictate. If the ship's going down, I'm going to yell out some orders, right? But um, mostly I want to pull on as much knowledge from that organization as possible. So many companies in the US I've worked with will issue quarterly profit and loss statements to all employees and actually on the clock pay them to know how to read an accounting statement. Like we should know if my organization is doing well and my unit or my department at organization is doing well. If not, hey, I presume you like your job, you work here. Let's use all those brains to think about better ways to do what we're doing and really empower everybody to help us be successful.
100% true. And the most successful people are always measuring, um, coaching, and developing and spend a lot of time within stats of their team and their company as well. Um, Paul, you've identified six key moments that unlock radical fulfillment. Could you elaborate on these moments and how individuals can harness them to improve their overall well-being?
Right. So we worked backwards to ask how much neurologic value, how much social emotional value do you need to really thrive? And the answer was six of these moments that are a big passion investment neurologically. Again, you don't know this on self-report, but your brain is investing all these resources for a long enough period of time that this is really valuable to you. And so for each individual, those will be different. I think what's really interesting about this work is that, as I mentioned earlier, we tend to have more of these high value moments at work than at leisure. At work, I have people around me and I have a goal, right? That's where the passion comes in. At leisure, I'm hanging out, drinking a beer, watching sports or whatever. Nothing wrong with that. It's fine, but it doesn't have that real focus, that purpose of doing this. And then the second is factors that include other people. So it's other people that generally add so much more value to our experiences. And so for each individual, those are going to be unique. And so having an app run in the background that links to your calendar, your location, and goes, hey, here's the three things you did today that were most valuable to you. Might think about doing more of those things, right? Hanging out with Michael, awesome, amazing time, high value moment. You should hang out with him more often. Apparently, that's a really interesting, experience for you. And so, just letting people get those experiences, you do need to have some of those outside of work. So when we work with first responders, police departments, military, we say like your job, you're gonna have a lot of high value moments at work, a lot of boring, and then things are gonna be on. Make sure you've got some energy so when you get home and you interact with your family, with your friends, you're still getting some high value moments. Otherwise, you're just a work machine and your personal life is going to suffer, and that's not sustainable.
100%. I guess a follow-up question for that too, Paul, would how can leaders facilitate these moments within their teams to boost morale and productivity?
I think it's really having these challenges So really thinking a lot about how to challenge people in a very concrete way, not just sell more, do more. Hey, this week we're going to do these 5 things. They're going to be hard. It's really important. Here's why we're doing them, but it's going to be really hard to achieve them. But together we can do that. And I'm going to take the first shift. So in the companies I lead, I always want to do the worst job first. Sign me up. I'll take the first shift, whatever that is, shoveling shit, whatever it has to be done, I'm going to do that first. And, I want some people to back me up and help me. And so we all have to be in this together. So really leading from the front. And the second is get to know people. So I think we have still this old-fashioned, I don't know, business school thing. There's a work you and there's a personal you, and never the two shall meet. No, you can take your team out for beers, have Friday pizza. You got to get to know these people on a personal level. That facilitates greater trust, but also greater emotional connection to you and the purpose of the organization.
Yeah, I think it's we're definitely talked a lot about like, relationships and being around people, and it's one of the key things that I've got out of the Centurions, Okinawa, Japan. Why people live longer is because they're thriving in community, they have connection and they have purpose. So I think it's really important too for leaders. Some people say you shouldn't be friends with your staff. You're there to be the boss. But I think there's a new era of executives coming out, especially with all this technology and AI and everything that's at our fingertips now. And some of my team, for example, Jasmine has been with me for 8 years, and she's amazing. And sometimes we have our little niggles, and but we always connect on the same wavelength. And I understand her struggles personally, and and she can always be open to me as well. And she knows that she can tell me anything, and I'm going to support her. So I think it's really important, obviously, component.
Yeah, I would
Um,
say invest in people, not in human capital. I don't know what human capital is. It's a terrible term. I've invested in the humans because they're very important and rare. And those high performers, I want them to stay with me.
Yeah, and it is a challenge for a lot of companies to keep their high performing team, because I think sometimes our vision and our why and what we want has to align with them as well. Like they have to see that clearly in their future as well, which I think is super important.
And that's where the listening comes in. So, at work, it's a little different situation. But if we go to happy hour or go hike or whatever, people will start talking and you'll leak out and figure out what people's motivations are. And I think having that understanding of who that person is, an individual, that employee, is essential to keeping them challenged at work and having a sense of growth.
100%. Paul, the integration of neuroscience into business practices is still emerging. What challenges have you encountered in bridging this gap?
Well, it's all in execution. And so I think one of the things I've been able to do well is to build really effective teams, right? So I'm the, weirdo founder scientist, but I have great technologists and leaders, very experienced leaders scaling up our business. And so I think building that team and really being, as I said earlier, invested in those individuals as human beings, not just as human capital, has been the way I've been successful.
I think it's what I hear from most of the high achievers, obviously working with and being connected with men on the top 50 Forbes list, and guys that have successful businesses, is it's always building the teams, and the team build the business. So I think obviously you've highlighted a lot of that today. I do find, especially in Australia, having a company that I'm developing called Peak Performing Teams, that sort of takes care of the wellness and nutrition and all that sort of stuff for a team. I do find that, when you talk about, subliminal rewiring or any technology that's gonna you know, like manipulate someone, that there is a lot of like brick walls and roadblocks. Have you experienced any of that yourself?
Yeah, I wouldn't say manipulate, but give you a chance to measure your underlying neurophysiologic state. I mean, we're all using smartwatches and fitness wearables, and I think the next level is, as we've shown, to be able to scalably and with predictive accuracy identify the factors that build up your emotional fitness. So this is like putting on your oxygen mask on the airplane when it decompresses, right? You can't help anybody else as a leader unless you yourself are physically fit, sleeping well, having good nutrition, and are emotionally fit. And so if you want to be a great spouse, a great parent, a great business leader, or just live longer, I happen to live in one of the only blue zones in the developed world, in Loma Linda, California. And so, yeah, it's about investing in all those areas of your life. And if you're having trouble doing that, get a coach.
Thank you for tuning in today, and I hope you found the discussion useful. Our goal is to positively impact the well-being of 1 million people's lives just like you by sharing the experience and knowledge of some of the world's top performers. So you don't miss out on any key strategies to help you succeed, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. And if you think you may know someone that would benefit from this episode, join us in our mission of impacting 1 million lives and share it with your friends.